Rosh Hashana is coming up in just over a week, so I think it'd be beneficial to discuss what exactly is Rosh Hashana, what are we supposed to be thinking about, what's the opportunity of that particular day. I shared with you guys before, but I'll share again because it's good to review, that in Judaism, a holiday is never a commemoration of an event that took place in the past. A holiday is an opportunity that we go through. It's an opportunity that we go through that is supposed to affect us. That anytime we go through any experience in life, regardless of what that experience is supposed to change us. Sadly, most people go through experiences constantly and it has no effect on them whatsoever. Unless it's, Rahman al-Islam, unless it's a tragedy. Unless it's something major that rocks their world. Unless it's something that is a blow to their emotional core. Very rarely do people go through an experience and stop to contemplate, how did this experience affect me? How did this experience change my outlook on life? How did this experience make me a different person? That is what every Jewish holiday is supposed to be. If there is an event in the past that the holiday is connected to, then that event is just to help give us an understanding of what the experience that we're supposed to go through is. The ultimate example is on Pesach. We sit around at our Passover table and we read the Haggadah, and it says in the Haggadah itself that every Jew is supposed to view themselves as if they're leaving Egypt that night. So you see that the author of the Haggadah has already inscripted in the Haggadah itself that this is an experience that we're going through tonight. This is not just a reminiscent telling over of something that happened to our people back in Egypt. This is an experience that each and every one of us is going through at that moment. So what's the experience of Rosh Hashana? That's what we're going to speak about. Secondly, there are two kinds of holidays. There are holidays that the Torah itself mandates, and then there are holidays that the rabbis instituted subsequently. And we're not going to talk about the rabbinical holidays because Rosh Hashana is not a rabbinical holiday. Rosh Hashana is a holiday that's in the Torah. But what that tells you is that if the holiday is in the Torah and the holiday is an experience that we're supposed to go through, then that means that that experience is an integral part of what it means to be a Jew. That you cannot live your life as a Jew without going through that experience. You cannot say that I am connecting with my Jewish identity without having gone through this experience every single year. And what is that experience? What are we told that happens on Rosh Hashana? So, when you open the Machzor, you will be saying a phrase every single time they blow the shofar. After they blow the shofar, you'll be saying, Hayoim Charas Hoilam. Today is the birth of the creation. Today is the day the world was created. But yet the rabbis in the Talmud tell us that that's not true. Yet we say it. We say that today is the day that the world was created, and yet the rabbis say that today is not the day the world was created. Rather, today is the day that man was created. That on Rosh Hashana, that is the day that Adam and Eve, that Adam and Chava were formed in Gan Eden. And that is what is happening on Rosh Hashana. That is the experience that therefore we're supposed to go through. Now, how can you go through an experience of Adam and Chava being created? I can understand saying that the Jewish people left Egypt. Okay, so I'm supposed to leave Egypt. So what does it mean that I'm supposed to experience Adam and Chava being created in Gan Eden? And what that tells us is that is what's happening to you on Rosh Hashanah. That you are being created on Rosh Hashanah. You are being reborn, if you will. You are being reformed on that very day. This is where they get the idea, by the way. I've told you this before. They stole every last thing from us, the non-Jewish world. But this is where the Christians get the idea of reborn, a born again. What do you mean born again? Because you've re-accepted your religion, you're born again? They stole that from us because we say that that's what happens to every single one of us on Rosh Hashanah. Go ahead, really freak out your rabbi on Rosh Hashanah. Go up to your rabbi on Rosh Hashanah and say, I'm a born again today.
What I'm getting.
Now, he might not even have any idea what you're talking about. So you have to go with a rabbi that understands other religions. But if you go up to a rabbi and say, today I'm a born again, it might freak him out a little bit. But that's what we say is happening on Rosh Hashanah. So what does that mean? That means that on Rosh Hashanah, we have the ability to become a new individual. That on Rosh Hashanah we have an opportunity for change that is change beyond anyone's wildest imagination. Because so many people mistakenly think that I am nothing more than the sum total of everything that I've done up until now. And if I am nothing more than the sum total of everything I've done up until now, then it is inevitable that I will continue to be the same person tomorrow. And life can't get any better. And it's too hard to change my habits. It's too hard to become more committed to any particular thing. And this is who I am. There's a big phrase out there in the world that you should eradicate from your vernacular. You should eradicate it from your mind entirely. You have to accept yourself. You have to learn to accept who you are. That's utter absurdity, according to Judaism. You accept who you are. What do you mean accept who you are? So therefore this is who I am, that's it? So the rest of my life I should settle for mediocrity? For the rest of my life I should just settle for who I am and I should never continue to grow? You accept who you are. Rosh Hashanah is the antithesis of that. On Rosh Hashanah you have the opportunity to decide who you are. That's the power of Rosh Hashanah. That in a split second you can choose to be something entirely different than who you are right now. On Rosh Hashanah we are told, the Talmud tells us, in that very same phrase, right after we blow the shofar, Hayom Charas Olam, we then go on and say, Hayom Ya'amid Bamishpat. The world is standing in judgment. Yom Hadin. When you open up your machzor, when you open up your prayer book, if you go to still on Rosh Hashanah, which I strongly recommend, I don't think I can recommend this strong enough. I don't care if you keep Shabbos, I don't care if you don't keep Shabbos. Okay, that's not true, I do care. Obviously, I wish every single one of you would keep Shabbos. I'm an Orthodox rabbi, so I'd be lying if I said I don't care if you keep Shabbos. I'm not here to tell you to keep Shabbos. I'm not here to tell you to keep kosher. But if there's one thing that I have to say, this is what you should do, you should go to shul and hear the shofar. That's it. Go to shul and hear the shofar. If you're not going to go to shul and go and do all the prayers, okay. But go to shul and hear the shofar. Because if there's one thing that is true, is that your soul wants to be great, and the call to arms of the soul is the shofar. Remember that. Your soul wants to be great, And the call to arms of the soul is the shofar. Go and let your soul hear it. Forget what you want to hear. Go and let your soul hear it, and then leave if you want. And right after we blow the shofar, we're going to say, Hayom Charas Olam, today is the day that I could be reborn. Hayom Yamid Bamishpat, today is the day I stand in judgment. So I started to say that if you do go to Shul on Rosh Hashana and you open up the prayer book, you open up the Machzor, if it's an English one, you'll actually see that in the very beginning, the opening cover, you open a few pages and they'll actually say Day of Judgment. That is what Rosh Hashana is. But yet from an external perspective, if you look at how we observe Rosh Hashana, there seems to be an incredible paradox. I don't know how many of you in this room, and hopefully not too many, have had to stand in front of a judge. To actually go to court and stand in front of a judge. I've had the misfortune of having to stand in front of a judge a few times. It's not pleasant. The one thing that you are not going to be when standing in front of that judge, unless of course you're a plaintiff suing someone for very, very large figures of dollars, and the judge says, okay, you're awarded your then you're going to be filled with euphoria. But otherwise, when you're standing in that court waiting for that judge to sentence, to make the decision, to make the decree, do you think that you're going to be in a state of joy? You're probably going to be in a state of trepidation and anxious, worrying. What's going to be? And yet, bless you. And yet, how do we celebrate Rosh Hashanah? What do we do? Shana Tova! Happy New Year! Shana Tova Umutuka! We wish you a Happy New Year. We go home after Shul, the first night of Rosh Hashanah. We sit down, and whether you're Persian, Ashkenazi, Sephardi, Bukharin, there is a universal custom that right after you say the motzi on the challah, what do? Honey and an apple.
Sweet.
Why? Because it should be sweet. And you're not supposed to eat spicy food. I don't know what the Sephardim do. What do you eat on Rosh Hashanah?
No, we don't eat. We don't eat.
You don't eat? Oh, okay, you don't eat. Huh?
Chili matog.
Chili matog. You're not supposed to eat foods that are sharp or bitter. We're not supposed to eat nuts because nuts have a numerical representation of transgression. We're not supposed to talk about transgression. Everything's about joy. Now, how is that possible that here we are celebrating the Day of Judgment? The Judge of Judges, the infinite being that decrees life and death. And we're sitting there, Happy New Year. So there are two aspects that I want to share with you. First and foremost, definition. The fact that we say that the Almighty judges us is none other than a declaration that the Almighty loves you. The fact that the Almighty judges you is nothing other than a declaration that the Almighty loves you. Imagine the following. Imagine the following. You're driving down the street, driving down Olympic. Olympic is a fast-moving highway there. And as you're flying down the highway, you see a 10-year-old kid playing in the middle of the street. What do? You stop, you're flying, you honk the horn. Ezra, you stop, kol hakavod. What do you think most people would do? Most people honk the horn. Probably a good number of people roll down their window and scream at him, "Hey idiot, you're going to get yourself killed, get out of the street." Occasionally, someone like Ezra, someone who cares enough about another human being, will slam on the brakes and roll down the window and say, "Kid, you better get out of the street. You're going to get yourself killed. What are you doing?" One car will not only slam on that brake, but one car when the kid sees who the car is. Because what do you think the kid does after Ezra drives away? flips him off, and goes back and plays in the street again. And all the people that drive by and make faces at him, he laughs at. One car comes to a screeching halt. The kid takes one look at the driver, and the kid takes off like a bat out of hell.
Police.
Mom. Or dad.
The door flings open. The driver jumps out of the car and starts chasing the kid.
What?
Who's driving that car?
Parents.
None other than the mom and dad. There's only one person driving that car. Mom or dad. Why? Because everybody else, they have a little concern. Kid's doing the wrong thing. So they show a little concern, they honk. Someone might have a little more concern. They'll actually stop the car. But there's only one individual that cares enough that this kid is doing something so dangerous that is going to stop the car and get out of that car and beat that kid if necessary. You're doing the wrong thing. Get out of the street. Get in the car and get home. And who's that? Mom or dad. Because when you judge someone, you know what they're telling them? You are saying one thing and one thing only. I care about you. You know what the worst thing a parent can do to a child? The worst thing a parent can do to a child, and I'm on tape, nobody's listening, but I'm on tape, I said the parents should beat the kid if necessary. I could only see if this actually was going to be watched, all the comments.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, abusive rabbi, lock him up. Can't hit your kids. There's one thing that's worse than beating your child. You shouldn't beat your child, okay? There, don't beat your children, okay? But there's only one thing that's worse than beating a child. You know what that is?
Not caring.
Neglecting that child.
Don't even care.
Neglecting the child. Ignoring that child and saying, by ignoring that child, I don't give two squats what you do. You want to throw your life down the gutter? Throw your life down the gutter. You want to go to school? Don't go to school. What do I care? It's your life. I don't care. There's only one way and one way only that a parent can tell a child that they care, is by telling that child, you're doing good, you're doing bad. By judging that child and saying, I approve, I disapprove. Because you matter. I care about you. The very first lesson of Rosh Hashana that we say God is judging us, and you know what we do? We celebrate it. Because no matter what that judgment is, it's sweet. No matter what that judgment is, it's a statement that God loves me. And that's sweet. Because there's nothing a child wants to know more than my Father in heaven loved me. But there's something else. There's a second aspect about Rosh Hashana, about being judged. That if you are judging someone, not only are you telling that person you care about them, but you know what else you're telling that person? You have the ability to do this. I believe in you. There's a rule in Judaism. A shota is pater b'mitzvahs. There's a rule in Judaism that a shota, an insane individual, a mentally ill person, is exempt from all mitzvahs. Why? Because they cannot be held liable. Because it's beyond their ability to choose one way or the other what to do. So therefore they're exempt. If someone does not have the ability to make a choice, they're exempt. The only way you can judge someone is and hold them accountable, like in the United States court system, when someone stands in front of the judge and says, I plead insanity, you're saying you can't hold me accountable. It was out of my ability to do anything different. And if the judge says, no, we are holding you accountable, it's because you could have done different. So if you're being judged, then that's the Almighty telling you that you had the ability to be different. You had the ability to be great. And therefore, you're going to be judged. To be judged is a statement of confidence and belief in you. It's not just I love you. It's I believe in you. That's what I spoke for those who were here last week. I spoke about what it means to be a mother. And Judaism says that a mother is called Aim. Aim HaBonim. The mother is Aleph Mem. Aleph is the first and Mem stands for Maimon. A mother is the first one that believes. What does that mean? It means the mother is the first one that looks at a child and says, I believe in you. You can do it. I know you're special. And that's what we say that the Almighty thinks about each and every one of us when we say we're being judged today. We're being judged today. That's the Almighty saying, I believe in you. You're special. You could be great. So being judged has two aspects. The first aspect of being judged is that God loves you. The second aspect is God believes in you. God loves you. God believes in you. To be what? Believes in you to do what? To be great. Because if we're going to talk about renewal, we're going to talk about recreation, then there's only one thing to talk about, and that's becoming a better person. So when you talk about New Year's, Rosh Hashana is Happy New Year's. What is the one thing that people always comes to mind when you speak about New Year's, whether Jewish, non-Jewish?
Party.
Huh?
Party.
Okay, outside once you pass high school. A Jewish, non-Jewish. You think non-Jews are walking around chauffeur? There you go. You talk about New Year's. Everybody, it doesn't matter, Jew, non-Jew. Oh, it's New Year's time. Did you make your New Year's resolutions? Did you think about what you want your new year to be? Everybody talks about New Year's resolutions. It's amazing. I've been teaching now for over 20 years. And every year I speak to people, and nothing has changed in the 20-some years that I've been teaching.
Nobody changed?
Is everybody makes New Year's resolutions. And everybody could easily take out last year's list and just change the date. 20-some years ago when I started telling people this, I used to say, go find the list you made. And all you have to do is take it out and erase the number at the top, 1980, and change the year. Now, if people do it, they do it in their phones. And look, everybody's got their phone out. I'm gonna think that you're all taking notes. But everybody, they keep their, they make their New Year's resolutions in their memo pad on their phone, right? Oh, this year I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna lose weight. This year I'm gonna start working out. This year I'm gonna do that. Yeah, I'm gonna eat healthy this year. I'm gonna join a gym this year.
Join classes.
Right?
Join classes.
Next year, Rosh Hashana, you can go find that memo and just change 2019, just change 2020. It's the same list. What's going on? Make the same list year in and year out, year in and year out. I've shared this with you before, I'll share it again. Imagine a friend of yours, guys in this room, you're old enough, your friends are starting to get married, some of you are starting to get married, you have kids. So chas v'shalom, it happens to anyone in this room. Imagine someone you know, an acquaintance, has a kid, go visit, wish them mazel tov. Then you come back 5 years later, it's an acquaintance, you only see them every 5 years. So you get invited to the 5-year something, and you go 5 years, you see their little toddler, 5-year, cute little 5-year-old, adorable. You got a cute little kid, acting like a normal 5-year-old, running around, screaming. You come back 5 years later. That little kid's 10 years old now, but they're still acting like a 5-year-old. They've stopped growing mentally, maturing emotionally. They're still a 5-year-old in their mannerisms, in their actions, in their mental development. You'd immediately say, tragedy. Sad. There's something obviously developmentally wrong with this child. All right. Imagine that kid did grow. He's 10 years old. He's acting like a 10-year-old. You know, he's starting to get that prepubescent mannerisms. Little wild, a little rambunctious. But, you know, that's how a 10-year-old's supposed to be. It's cute. It's adorable. You come back 5 years later. He's clearly still 10, developmentally. Tragedy, no? Something wrong with the kid. He obviously can't develop. Imagine you come, he's 15 years old. The kid's 15, he's acting like a 15-year-old supposed to act. This time you come back 10 years later. 10 years later, he's 25, but developmentally, he's still 15. It's tragedy, no? Sad. Can't help it. All right, gentlemen, he's 25. He's acting like a 25 is supposed to act. And you come back 10 years later, and he's still the maturity level of a 25-year-old.
It's not as bad.
It's worse because
35 years old. You come back, he's still maturity acting like a 35-year-old. At what point did it stop becoming a tragedy?
35.
Wrong!
It never stops.
It never stops.
Thank you. And which is a bigger tragedy?
When they're older.
The 5-year-old that has no choice because he can't help it. And Rahman al-Islam, the kid's he's developmentally incapable of growing. Or the 25-year-old who has all his faculties, who has all his capabilities, who has all the potential to continue to grow and stops by choice. Which is a bigger tragedy?
The older one.
Yeah.
The older one.
Yeah.
He's getting older too.
Gentlemen, when are you going to stop making the same stupid New Year's resolutions and grow? When are you going to hear the shofar and wake up? You're going to make the same resolutions again next year? Same resolutions again next year? The same resolutions the next year? Until you're 50 and say, all right, I guess this is who I am. Learn to accept yourself. That's what they say out there. And stop growing.
Loser, right?
Accept your mediocrity. Rosh Hashana is all about waking up. Hisayri, shake me, wake me. Hear the shofar and wake up. Because life is just fleeting by. Another year gone by. Another year gone by. Another year gone by. Well, we're going to stand in judgment on Rosh Hashana. And what are we going to do 10 days later? We're going to fast on Yom Kippur. Now I'm telling you that Rosh Hashana is a declaration that the Almighty loves me. Rosh Hashana, God is going to judge each and every one of you, and that is a declaration that the Almighty loves you. And with that infinite love, the Almighty gives us a gift. A gift. A gift that is beyond human understanding. That gift is Yom Kippur. That you're going to be judged for all of your transgressions and all of your misgivings and all of your good deeds. Judgment is not just negative. You're going to get reward for every good thing you did. Every single good thing you did. You managed to pay attention 5 seconds in this class. You were able to muster up 5 seconds of paying attention and really thinking. You're going to get reward for that. You're going to get reward for that. Listening and thinking about the Almighty and my relationship with the Almighty, you're going to get reward for that. But you consciously decide to tune out, yeah, you're going to get judged for that. And you're going to get judged for every little thing. And that's going to be a heavy burden to pay. But God says, don't worry, I'm going to give you a gift. I'm going to give you a gift. Yom Kippur. You can wipe it out. You can wipe it out. Now let me ask you a question. Which is the greater act of love? Which do you think would be a greater act of love? To be judged And by the way, judgment comes with a sentence. And that sentence is heavy. We're not going to talk about that. But trust me, that sentencing is heavy. Judged. And then I'll say to you, it's okay, here's your sentence, but I'm going to give you a chance to wipe it away. That's option A. Option B, I want you to tell me, which do you think would be a greater act of love? Option A, you're judged, you're sentenced, but you get an opportunity to wipe it away. Option B, I'm going to judge you in a week from now. I'm going to give you an opportunity right now to wipe away anything that could possibly be a negative judgment. And then, 10 days from now, I'm going to judge you. Which is a greater act of love, would you think? Huh?
Second one.
Okay. B, you say A. Ezra, why A?
B is more
Like
mercy.
you said before.
Yeah?
The initial one. And in order for me to love you, I got to judge you first. So you fix yourself.
I'm telling you, I'm going to judge you.
Yeah, but people always, when they feel like, oh, I'm going to let it clear off, you're like, oh, I got a free slate, you go back to it again.
Ezra, you redeemed yourself. Listen very carefully. A greater act of love. A greater act of love would be the second one. A greater act of love would be to say, I'm going to judge you in 10 days from now. Go get rid of everything. However, God understands human nature. And God understands that if that was the scenario, if Yom Kippur came first, we would never take judgment seriously. No, I could wipe it away. Wipe it away. And we would never, ever understand the real power of Rosh Hashana. Because we would never change.
You have 10 days, you can't clean up your act for 10 days.
That's the point.
No, you would. You'd clean up your act.
Yeah.
And then you'd be like, I cleaned up my act for 10 days.
10 days. You're
That's it.
10 days enough though?
No.
For the
And then
entire
you'd go
year?
back to being the same way you always were. You would
Exactly.
just do it for those 10 days. Rosh Hashanah is, no,
After you
I'm
get
judged. Now it's real. Now that change has to be real. Because the judgment was real.
So 10 days after you put it.
So you get
You're
judged on Rosh Hashanah.
Rosh Hashanah. Now that you're judged and sentenced, now you better be real about change. That's the power of Rosh Hashanah, gentlemen. That's the reason that God said you have to be judged first. Judgment has to come first so that we understand that judgment is real. That judgment is real, that sentencing is real, and therefore the change that has to take place has to also be real. If you take a look at the prayers of Rosh Hashanah, though something seems quite out of configuration with what I'm telling you Rosh Hashanah is all about. If Rosh Hashanah is all about a day of judgment, and it's all about deciding right now who I want to be, well then how come the prayers don't talk about that at all?
About the kingship of God.
You open up the prayers on Rosh Hashanah and it doesn't talk about you at all. Yom Kippur is all about you. Yom Kippur is all about I'm sorry, I did this, I'm sorry I did this, I'm sorry I did this, I'm sorry I did this. Rosh Hashanah? Nothing. The only thing we say on Rosh Hashanah that has anything to do with me personally is we throw in this one little line 3 times in the Shmona Esrei, in the Amidah. Zachrenu l'chaim. Remember me for life. Zachrenu l'chaim, melech chafetz b'chaim, v'kasvenu b'sefer hachayim. Remember me for life. Write me in the book of life. That should be the body of the whole prayer. I want life. I want to live. I want to live life. I want a year of vibrancy. I want a year of passion. I want a year. That's what I want. I want greatness. Shouldn't the prayers be all about that? Nothing to do with that. It's just a little snippet that we plug in there because we got to say it. By the way, it's almost like we talk about everything the prayer talks about, and we'll say what that is in a moment. And by the way, don't forget about me. Like, by the way, don't forget about me. It's like when Yosef HaTzadik was in the jail. Like when he was in jail in Mitzrayim, and he said to the baker, he said, all right, listen, you're going to get out of jail and you're going to go back to Paro and it's all going to be great. And could you try and remember me? It's like we're a little snippet there. You open up the prayer book on Rosh Hashana and you read the Machzor, and it only talks about one thing over and over and over and over again. V'timloich melech al kol ha'olam kuloi b'chvodecha. God be king. We want God to be king. Because if a person really wants to live a life of greatness, it requires several things. The first and foremost thing that it requires is an understanding of what greatness is. Greatness is not this subjective quest for my own personal achievement. And what's greatness for you is not greatness for you, and what's greatness for you is not greatness for you. That is nonsense. Greatness requires a clear understanding of what ultimate greatness is. And ultimate greatness is that the world is great. That the world is achieving that utopian state of existence. Like they have on the, just in case, I'll refrain from any colorful comments, but like they have on that establishment of world peace in New York, the UN. That mockery of world peace. But what they have outside that building is a quote from our Bible. And on that day, the lamb shall lie with the lion, and the sword shall turn into the plow. On the day where you have brotherhood of mankind, and you have world peace, and no more sickness, and no more disaster, and no more war, that humanity will understand what life is about. Humanity, not me, humanity will understand that life is precious, and that life is meaningful, and that life is purposeful. And how is that going to happen? When God is king. Period. And so when I'm standing there thinking about what kind of life I want to live, first and foremost I have to understand that the life that I want to live is only vis-a-vis the world's understanding. And that's why we sit there and we talk about God be king. And only once we understand that God be king, then we can say, well, I also want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of that. Remember me for life. And now I'll just share one more idea about Rosh Hashana. What do you mean, remember me for life? We're going to say it over and over again on Rosh Hashana. 2 days, we're going to say, Zachreinu l'chaim, remember me for life. Melech chafetz b'chaim, kasveinu b'sefer chaim, write me in the book of life. So what are we saying? We're standing there on Rosh Hashana and we're actually declaring that there's a book of life and a book of death. And we want to be in the book of life. But what does that imply? That there's a book of death.
What's the book of death?
And not everybody is going to get in the book of life. So what is the book of life and what is the book of death? Because it's not what people think it means. Yes, it means that it's going to be. Some people are going to die this year. But it can't just mean that, because if that's the case, then half of humanity should die every year. Because at least half of humanity is getting in the book of death. I can guarantee you that. At least half.
If not more.
If not more. And why don't we see half of humanity die? Because that's not what the book of life and death is. The book of life and death is not just to actually be alive, not just to actually be dead. But the book of life and death is to be alive or dead even while we're alive. The book of life versus death is, I don't want to just go through the motions of life. I want to be alive.
Alive in that sense.
Yeah.
What's more precious, money or time?
Time.
Everybody will tell you time.
Time is money.
But gentlemen,
Higher than my can't get
how
it.
many of you,
Exactly.
how many of you have driven down 405 or driven on the 10 or the 101? How many of you have driven along those freeways and taken a wad of $100 bills out of your pocket and just thrown them out one at a time out the window? Anybody ever done that? No. If you ever saw anybody do that, you'd freak out. First and foremost, you'd probably get into a car accident trying to grab them as they flew by you.
Oh my god.
Secondly, you'd probably follow this idiot just to see who is this nutcase that's throwing $100 bills out the window.
Maybe it's Bill Gates.
Could you imagine how shocked, guarantee it's not Bill Gates. Could you imagine how shocked you'd be if you followed this person and you ended up getting off the freeway and pulling into a Krispy Kreme donut stand? That's where he pulls in. And you pull in there too, and you're like, okay, well, at least not only do I get to find out who this idiot is, I get to get a donut at the same time. And you jump out of your car because you want to see.
What if
And
he
this guy
said,
gets out of his car and he walks over to you and says, you know, I'd really like to get a donut, but I don't have any money on me and I don't have a credit card. Could I borrow $5? I'd like to get a few donuts. You gotta be kidding me! You must have just thrown $1,000 out the window. You want me to give you $5? Forget it! Gentlemen, none of us have ever thrown $100 out the window. But you all unanimously said that time is more precious than money. Every single one of us has thrown a lot more than $100 out the window. Every single one of us has wasted precious moments of our life. Just let them just flip by. Going through the motions of life. You know what that is? That's walking death. You're not alive. You're just going, you're a zombie. You're just going through the motions of life. Write me in the book of life. I want to live. I want to know what life's about. I want to know what life's about so I can live with passion, with vibrancy. I want to wake up in the morning and say, I'm alive. Versus, oh, when's this going to end? When's this going to end?
When it's 6 feet under coming.
When's this going to end? When's the rabbi going to shush so we can just go to something else? When's this going to end? So we can go to the next thing and wait for that to end. And then the next thing and wait for that to end. Write me in the book of life. Gentlemen, you're going to stand on Rosh Hashana. You're going to stand in front of the King of Kings. And that King of Kings is going to judge you. And he's going to look back at your last year and say, have you demonstrated a desire to live? Have you demonstrated an urgency to live? Because if you haven't, then what audacity do you have to stand there and say, let me live? But the beauty is that the Almighty is going to judge you. And the Almighty at that moment is saying to you right then and there, I don't care what you did. Even if you wasted another year of your life, I believe in you. I'm judging you. And right now, you can choose to want to live. And if you choose right now, sincerely, earnestly, to want to live, I will write you in the book of life. Because you are not the sum total of everything you've done up until now. You are far greater. And you have the ability to do it. Hear the shofar. Choose what you want to live this coming year. And God willing, every single one of us will be written in the book of life.
Amen.
All right?
Change.
Kazaku Baruch.
Zaku.